go into my own. No, I haven't. I don't want to. There's enough creepy weirdness out there. Good. Okay. And hi, I'm Francesca Amato with Punish for Protecting, and this is actually first going to be aired here on Facebook Live as a Facebook Live broadcast, and it will be also aired on YouTube, Punished, the number 4 Protecting, as well as Delta TV, California, PATV, Long Island, and several other television stations that air Punish for Protecting. And you can't really ask for a truer Punished for Protecting story than the one that we're going to share today. We want to thank you for not just joining, but please, you help us help families by sharing this message. So please share it to groups, share it with your friends list, and for people that don't know what's really going on in the family courts and with CPS or ACS or any of this system, we'd like to spread the word by these interviews so that families everywhere will understand what's really going on in this false, fraudulent court system. Today, I am very blessed to have the mother of little Tommy Valva with me, Justyna Valva, and it's nice to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Do you want to maybe bring it in a little bit if she's low? So first I want to start, first of all, you're such a strong woman of God. You have very strong faith in God, and I know that's what's been holding you together.
Yes.
And I feel the same way. And it's a blessing to have you here today. To know what you have had to go through with this situation with your son and with your children on a whole, how does this leave you feeling with everything that's been going on, with the media picking it up, with the media not telling the full story, with some people that have come around you, things like that?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me again. Obviously, my story was shared and touched so many hearts, which I'm very thankful for. I've been receiving a lot of support from family, friends, as well as people who don't know me, whose Thomas, my son's story, touched their hearts, and they, cannot imagine being in the place that I've been in the past. I am right now. I'm hoping, through obviously this interview to, share the message to all the people who are affected by the system of corruption, unfortunately, that we're dealing with, as well as protect more children who are being abused, who are maybe in the same situation as my son Tommy and my other children were, to stop this abuse, to hold the people accountable, for protecting the children, to actually do their job, and protect the children instead of protecting the abusers of the children. Obviously media interview me many times, and I'm very thankful for providing the information, but the story of me and my children is much more deeper than everybody knows. I've been getting a lot of questions in regards to how loving and caring mother was able to lose the temporary custody of them, even though I took care of my children since they were born. And the most important aspect of this fact is just because of enormous corruption, because the judge involved in my case issued 2 fictional orders of protection that were not in the court's minutes, were not in Department of Justice registry or police registry.
So when you say fictitious orders of protection, fictional protection orders, against who at this point?
It was issued against me.
Against you,
without any find of neglect of my children. Everything was planned. Actually, later on in a case, I found the evidence where my, the father of my children's attorney wrote a letter to mortgage company that was holding a mortgage of the house that Michael bought with Angela, that he's gonna have 100% custody, children will be living with him, I may have supervised visitation, and our marital home will go on immediate sale. And that letter was written on July 7th, 2017. And as you know, my children were unlawfully removed from under my care September 6, 2017. So we're talking about only 2 months.
Now this letter that was found, this was pre even seeing a judge, is that right at that point? Or?
The letter was written 2 months before it actually happened. Whatever was written in that letter became a reality. Children were unlawfully removed. I was basically, later on deprived from seeing them for almost 2 years in order to justify the unlawful removal of my children. The father filed false CPS allegations against me. It took me over a year and a half.
Can we say where he filed these allegations? What exact department was
the
that?
allegations were filed. I'm assuming it was him, because obviously when you call in CPS hotline, you don't know who filed it. But it were filed on October 31st, 2017, which was a month and a half after the removal of the children. And basically,
so they were in his care, and then they were filed against you,
right?
But which department was it? What county? What
was it? On the CPS hotline, and the case went to Suffolk County Family Court.
Okay.
But was initiated against me happened after I discovered physical injuries on my son's body, which was Thomas's body, on January 14, 2018. During my visitations, obviously I called CPS hotline, I reported it, my neighbor saw the injuries, so I wouldn't be falsely accused. And the CPS case worker, instead of immediately removing the children and petitioned to the court basically for arresting Michael, because that was assault with physical injuries, she actually decided to go to the court and file for 2 neglect petitions, one against me, one against the father. But if it comes to my case, she asked for full stay-away order of protection. And against the father, she kept the children under his abusive and sadistic care. Obviously, she only requested for regular order of protection, so the kids will be still under his care. And she claimed that he just, it was excessive punishment. But meanwhile, it was assault with physical injury on a child with special needs. If
they
Tommy
would be arrested for that if it was an adult on an adult. So
yes, if Tommy was removed that day from his father's and Angela Paulina's care, and all 2 of my children, Tommy will be alive today. But that did not happen. Then, as I mentioned to you, I went through a year and a half of complete nightmare, trying to defend myself in court, not having any legal representation. But I knew what the truth was. I had evidence that I was able to disprove all the false allegations. And in April 12, 2019, Judge Cheng from Suffolk County Family Court issued the order that all the allegations were dismissed, all the dockets were against me.
Okay.
Yes, and were closed. In terms of the father, he only received order of protection for a year and basically a supervision that involved classes from the library, which was basically a joke.
Now, what was his job title, by the way? What did he do, for those that don't know?
He was police officer. He's still employed by NYPD.
He's still employed right now and behind bars? He did not?
Well, I didn't hear anything that would state that he lost his job. I think he's suspended without pay. But, the issue that, a lot of people don't know, especially what happened in my case, I immediately, discovered that my case was basically, very much showed enormous web of corruption that, lead to, Michael being so protected by the court, by the CPS caseworker, by district attorney's office, which I also filed. For Suffolk County, I filed 2 criminal complaints on December 14, 2018. And last time when I met with them, I showed them that my complaints that involved 48 pages of literally describing, the whole case, provided, basically the evidence in the form of 425 files on a flash drive.
My God.
Went nowhere.
Did this come with photographs as well?
Everything was included on the flash drive. And
any medical? Because I know.
Yes, they will show the medical records of the kids that they only have 0.57% body mass index, which is almost starvation to death. Everything was included on the flash drive.
2018.
It was 2018. Then instead of complaint, obviously going to the Division of Child Abuse and Maltreatment, it went actually to the Financial Division of Suffolk County District Attorney's Office.
Interesting.
Which they didn't even investigate my complaint. It went to Suffolk County Police Department, which they always protected Michael in any of his criminal actions against the children, against me. I actually follow up, and I send email to District Attorney's Office, Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, asking them, what happened to my complaint and why my complaint, instead of being placed in a division for child abuse, was actually placed in a financial division. And at that point, I did not receive any follow-up email, any information.
What do you believe is the reason it went through this department, the financial?
Well, it was just completely destroying me and the children, hide the true situation of my children's abuse from the hands of Father and Angela. And even now, the investigation, there's enormous concerns regarding the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office investigation, which I expressed to media many times. But obviously, you can't find my statements anywhere. That's why we're trying to post it here. Obviously, I'm extremely concerned regards to the video recording from the day of Thomas's death.
Right. Now that's from inside the house of Mr. Valva.
Yes, it was.
So there were cameras all through the house?
Yes, every room had a camera inside, and there was cameras outside. The district attorney's office is trying to tell me that the images do not exist, they were deleted, which I obviously don't believe in it, because we live in the technology age that everything is somewhere stored and copied and can be, retrieved if, can be brought back. And that will just show what exactly happened to Tommy and why Michael should be charged with first-degree murder, not the second-degree murder. Obviously, he was suffocating Tommy when he had the ability to actually save his life. And the district attorney's office is trying to hide those evidence, which I'm completely against it. I want the whole truth, not the partial truth. As I stated to the media, there is a case involving a sexual abuse of my children when they were produced for child pornography, where Michael was receiving enormous amounts of money. I mean, we're talking about even over $100,000 a month.
Coming in per month.
Coming to his account, joined with Angela from unknown sources.
Which is definitely, there's something very wrong going on with that, because right today, what they do is if you're buying a house and you have a transfer of money, there's a lot of things stopping that, even if it's your own money and you worked for it. So there's something very fishy about that if it's coming in per month.
And the reason why the district attorney's office is trying to hide the images from the date of Thomas's death, and even prior, 48 hours prior to it, I do believe has to do with trying to hide the people responsible for sexual abuse of my children. And that's just completely wrong. We need a federal investigation in this case. We need some external institution to look over what happened, and we need to really get to the bottom of it, because, situation of children, you know, similar situation of what Tammy went through. It's happening every day, and it's not being stopped.
Every single day. I've been doing this for almost 13 years, and we talked earlier, the other day, I think we talked, and I said to you, every single case that I've seen of an abused child that was murdered in this type of situation like this, every single one of them, there was sexual abuse.
Yes, it's unfortunately, in my kid's case, that was the case. And that's, you know, not gonna stop until we are gonna put behind the bars all the people involved in this enormous abuse of my children, and people are gonna be held accountable. All those people who covered up the abuse, who knew about the abuse but did absolutely nothing to protect my children. We're talking about the attorneys for the children. I mean, Donna McCabe, I cannot stress enough how much responsible is for the death of Tammy, for the enormous abuse of my children.
Do you want to explain to people who don't know, because there's people that don't follow politics and they really don't know. Who is that?
I mean, Donna McCabe is the sister of Andrew McCabe, who is the former FBI deputy, assistant deputy director, who was removed by President Trump from the office for alleged, obviously, corruption. And having that powerful figure, you know, in the family, she knew that no matter what criminal actions she can do, she's always going to be protected. The judges knew the same, that, you know, anything what they're going to do in this case, I mean, how higher you can go than FBI. You know, you can go to Attorney General, which I did go to as well. I wrote 2 complaints to William Barr, and the complaints were very extensive, as the Newsday reported, 75 pages, and I included all the reports that were filed by the teachers on CPS hotline, which you know, based on media.
So the teachers tried, is what you're saying. They did try, but not all of them. Or
no, I'm thankful to the teachers for filing those reports. I am thankful, but I do feel like the law should change, and if the school does not see the improvement of the case, if the child still comes to school with bruises, urinated, like my children, looking for food in the floor, I mean, in a garbage, the next step would be filing police reports.
So, and I want to just touch on that, because this is what I've seen over and over and over and over again throughout the years, too many times, never not happen. Abused children are ignored, and children are not being abused. The schools let them into the school to take a child out of a classroom and go talk to a stranger from CPS that has really they have no legal background, they have no psychology background, they have no authority really, and then they sit there and they interrogate a child that's not being abused. So the schools have it backwards. They're violating all kinds of all our constitutional amendments. However, in a case where there's real abuse, they take a non-biased stand. It really doesn't make any sense at all.
In my case, what happened here, at first, you know, everybody was claiming the CPS case is open, you know, in regards to the family, and allegedly CPS case workers went in school every day, but the abuse did not stop. Children kept coming with more and more, you know, bruises, injuries, or, you know.
And they just left them. And how long did that time span? How long was that time span with the bruises and the children being
we're talking basically since he received the temporary custody of the children, the father.
Almost 3 years.
And it was from September 6th, obviously 2017.
It angers me beyond words, because of what I know and because of all the families I work with. It angers me beyond I can't even form words. That's how much it's so upsetting.
But the problem here, which a lot of people, you know, are not aware of, is that the CPS case worker, in the most severe, you know, reports that were filed by the school in regards to, you know, Anthony and Tammy being kept in a garage with no heat. I mean, we're talking about those reports being filed in February of 2019, March of 2019. And the CPS case workers, what they did, they were closing those reports the next day without any investigation, claiming as it was a duplicate. That's why they were able to go around the system and not follow up with 60-day, you know, investigation requirements and removing the children from that abusive
an emergency situation where you would immediately remove children from,
Of
but yet they
course.
take children for nothing
Yes.
whatsoever without due process,
Yes.
and then they string families along forever, and then say that you need due process now to get them back. It's absolutely, everything's backwards. The whole system's backwards.
Corruption was enormous in my case, and those case workers, as I stated, on my appearance on February 6th, to those names that I already mentioned, I would add Hippie, who is, believe it or not, still a supervisor on the case, not removed, still getting paid through our taxes, not being charged criminally for taking a part in Thomas's death, because he knew about. I spoke with him personally. I spoke with Rabbi Clito, who was his supervisor. The highest person, Mark Calvin, I tried to contact him several times, and they refused to, even connect me with him to explain the situation. I even reached out to CPS, supposedly be like oversight office.
They
in
oversee themselves.
Where at some point they just stopped, picking up my phone calls and responded with absolutely nothing to even investigate, why children are being abused, and nothing is being done.
Absolutely nothing, though. This is what
Absolutely
I hear every day.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Ignores phone calls. Committee on Judicial Conduct ignores families for years and years.
Right.
Judge DeFiore, the head chief justice, ignores families for years and years.
Yeah.
While you were going through this, prior to all of this, were you like saying, is this real? Is this really happening? Were you talking to other people? How did you feel?
I just completely lost faith in the justice system, in all the institutions that are supposed to protect the kids. They actually were doing opposite. They were protecting the abusers. I felt hopeless, just filing numerous amounts of complaints to the highest authorities in the country.
And it just passes the buck, right?
It were either, your complaint is dismissed, or we can do nothing in
Did
this
they ever
case.
say
It has
to
to
you-
go to local authorities, which local authorities were corrupted. So it was just going around in a circle, trying to fight for justice for my kids, trying to save their lives, but there was nobody who would have helped me.
They gave you the old no jurisdiction. Did you hear that a lot? Because
that was also one of the reasons why.
Do you know why they don't have jurisdiction, though? Technically, they really do. We all have jurisdiction over this.
Right.
Is because the whole system's a fraud. It's a fraud.
Yeah.
It was never voted in by the people. So even if they did good for these 6 decades, 7 decades, they'd still be a fraud.
Right.
So how do we have a justice system that violates our framers, violates our founding fathers, violates our Constitution? So now once they do that, anything goes after that point.
Yeah.
So why should people chase their tail to do something that's normal, like protect your children?
Right.
How do you have an agency called Child Protective Services that's doing the extreme opposite of any common sense whatsoever?
Yes.
It has to be corruption.
It's definitely requires either abolishment or enormous changes, because right now I've been hearing information that Suffolk County CPS is trying to hire more workers. For what? That's not going to stop the corruption.
It's going to keep the corruption going.
And actually, why don't we talk about putting body cameras on CPS case workers, where they go for interviews with the children,
They
and
need to be
exactly
on the judges too, though. The
can
body cameras need to be on the
exactly
judges.
what the children are saying, and they can determine if the children are actually brainwashed to say those things or not. Like it happened in my case, the children were enormously brainwashed, taught hatred towards me, under enormous regime of their father and Angela. And at that point, the children knew that they're going back to the abuser's home.
That's right.
They're
They're
gonna
afraid.
they're gonna be tortured, starved, abused. So they will say to the CPS caseworker, whatever Angela and Michael was teaching them to say was, and the evidence are on my Twitter.
Right.
From 2016.
Where he's making them repeat what he wants to program them.
Exactly. At this point, everything. The family court proceedings should be video recorded. The forensic evaluations should be video recorded. There should be, institution that oversees CPS, that is external, independent.
Should be the people.
Right.
The people,
That, when you file complaint, that complaint is actually being looked at and decided, not just pushed aside and justified.
I don't believe that the system was ever put in place to actually protect children. I don't believe the courts maybe years ago when there was still a moral fiber in mankind, that maybe then they did better in certain cases, but as time went on, logarithmically, as time goes on, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and they become more extreme, they become more blatant in their actions, they become more arrogant in their actions. Okay, so I've never met anybody that hasn't suffered through family court, and it's saying a lot if I meet people all over the country that nobody has ever felt safe. Why should you go to court as a family and not feel safe? Think about that.
Especially when you have all the evidence to prove your arguments. You're showing the evidence of abuse to the judges, who completely ignore, your obviously, the truth that you're trying to present. And it got to the point that in my neglect case that was filed against me, I mean, the judge was putting all the reports that were coming in, the new findings of the children abuse. At that time, I didn't even see the children. They were being put under my docket number instead of Michael's docket number.
Happened to me too.
Yes.
That happened to me too.
And enormous manipulation. So the person who will read it will think, oh, the mother was actually harming those children.
It's amazing. It must be a common tactic.
Yes, and just going back to obviously the report about children staying in the garage. That report was actually filed in February. And at that point, Michael had order of protection that was issued against him that expired on March 7th, 2019. And at that point, he should be arrested. There should be criminal charges filed against him. Children should be immediately removed.
Especially as a police officer, he should be held in a way higher accountability.
Exactly.
Here's something you see that, especially in New York State, they just give out protection orders like candy, like the way they give out public pretenders like candy, even if people have more than enough money, and they still give them out on our tax time. But how do you protect an adult from somebody with a protection order? They can't come anywhere near you, 500 feet, 5,000 feet. But a child can live in the same house with their abuser with a protection order. Where does that make any sense? If this system isn't geared to actually harm children, I don't have any other answer, because what do you feel? Like, you experienced this.
If it comes to protective orders, just going back to Judge Zimmerman, I mean, on September 6, 2017, she issued fictional order, temporary order of protection, full stay away order of protection against me. And 2 weeks later, she issued another fictional order where she allowed me to have unsupervised visitations with my children. So those two orders were completely contradicting each other.
Right.
And
so you're only safe when she says so, but you're not safe when she doesn't say so. It's absurd.
Clearly, the first order was designed to immediately and brutally remove the children from under my care without even a due process. I mean, she should actually request the specialist of my children. 2 of my children were diagnosed with autism. They were receiving therapies. They were in schools for many, for a long time, getting used to their teachers, therapists, specialists that work with them. I mean, we have, even some of the specialists writing letters to the court stating that this unlawful removal will cause severe psychological regression in the development.
And I was going to talk about that because I'm an ADA advocate, a specialty in ADA, American Disability Act, and you're not supposed to take, by the Department of Justice laws, you're not supposed to take children from their primary fit caretaker when there's disabilities. So
there should be like either a transition program implemented based on the specialist recommendation that will be the best for the child. Now, what she did, she completely took away everything more my children loved. I mean, she took away their mother who was with them since they were born. You can just imagine how much damage she caused. And she's still a judge. I heard that they're waiting for her to retire in May. Why she's not criminally charged for what she did? Why
they should all be criminally charged?
Right. There shouldn't be judges' immunity. That should be
that's first of all that's another lie, though. Can I just explain? When a system is put into place and it's a fraud, everything thereafter is a fraud. So this judicial immunity, we are supposed to be a more educated people in the 21st century. We're supposed to be more sophisticated. How do we go backwards into ancient times? There's no such thing as judicial immunity. These people are committing crimes, period. So how long has it been now and they're still not in jail, any of these people? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. The Commission on Judicial Conduct is obviously just completely ignoring the complaint that was filed. it's basically designed to just protect the judges. I mean, how many complaints I filed to that commission with the evidence of their abuse towards me and my children. I mean, it got to the point that Judge Lawrence actually lied on the court's records in regarding to appointing a forensic evaluator, where he should be immediately removed from presiding over my divorce case. And it had to get to the death of my child that he excused himself.
Yeah.
But how many times did I actually ask to transfer the case to another court, or him, completely remove himself from presiding over my case? That went just nowhere, because he's the one who's gonna decide it. I mean, the complaint went as far as Judge St. George, Judge Goodstein, which right now I heard he's the new judge on the case, which, I'm really concerned about that, because he knew about the abuse of my children. He did absolutely nothing to address, criminal action of Judge Lawrence. Then the complaint went also to Judge Caruso, which is the highest judge for the courts of outside New York City.
And you said your name is Caruso?
Yes, Judge Caruso.
Yeah.
And
corruption there.
Completely, anything what I addressed with them was completely dismissed and not addressed. The judges were not punished for their action. And, at that point, what else could I have done, to actually help my children? I went everywhere. Every possible person that I thought could help my children, and I filed complaint to that, either institution, organization, went without, my voice being heard, went without, providing help to my kids.
And then part about the children regressing, did you notice yourself, like now that the two are back in your home, do you notice any of this regression in the children, or what are you seeing right now?
Obviously the damage, the severe damage was done to them, especially in terms of, enormous brainwashing and teaching hatred towards me, my family, obviously, my mom who was here. And that's gonna take a long time, a long-term therapy to actually address, their needs to help them with the healing process. And all those years of them just feeling happy and safe, that was taken away from them, and nobody's gonna return that to them, because nobody can.
That's right.
And right now I can just imagine, for my children, at that time being only 8, 6, and 4, what they went through is beyond anybody's imagination, and I just pray to God that the justice is gonna be served. People who took a part of hiding the abuse of my children, obviously besides the main abusers, Mike and Angela, are actually gonna be charged criminally for their actions, so another child is not gonna be harmed from their hands. Those people should not be around any other children and should not be the site of anybody's fate, because those people are just dangerous.
Did you have the same guardian ad litem, or was it they're supposed to be called attorney for child for all 3 children, by the way?
The attorney for the children, Dana McCabe, was appointed since the beginning of the divorce
case. What is your
case.
thoughts on this person?
Like I stated,
Ignores abuse.
Before I reached out to her, I remember first interaction with her, she wasn't even interested in actually reading the court documents that I was trying to provide it to her. Since the beginning, I got the feeling that she was always protecting Michael and acting like the best friend of his attorney, talking with her before every court appearance, even though she should not. She should actually talk with both parties present. Her actions were just completely criminal. She knew about all the reports filed, because I included them in every single motion filed to the court. The recordings that are posted on my Twitter page in regards to brainwashing and teaching hatred to the children by Mike and Angela, she claimed that she can't hear those recordings, even though the whole United States can hear.
Right. She goes deaf. Selective hearing.
Exactly. She always, even I remember the proceeding when she would fight for overnight visitation for Michael, which I provided the evidence of hardcore pornography.
Sounds like another one that I know.
Right. I provided the evidence of hardcore pornography. Yes, done by Michael, where he was actually taking pictures of his private parts, sending to other women online without even there was a times when children were not sleeping and he was trying to put the kids to bed. And the judge wouldn't even grant overnight visitation for Michael. It was the first judge on the case, Judge Risigliano. And, you know, her criminal actions are just beyond anybody could imagine. But having attorney for the children, unfortunately in the court, she has deciding voice in regards to every court decision. And in my case, whatever Dana McCabe was stating or saying, that was, you know, the outcome of every single court proceeding. And when I questioned her and addressed with the court, you know, my enormous concerns in regards to her conduct, the judge got to the point where the judge just literally told me to stop talking. And if I was gonna state another, you know, negative comment about Dana McCabe, you know, I would either be removed from the court proceeding or I would not be able to.
Again, threats.
Threats.
And that's the whole thing. We have an Amy Ingram in Ulster County. I have all of the attorney for children are all the same person in different bodies and genders, okay? But they're the same evil person.
Yes.
And they're all insane, and they all go towards the abuser and then attack the innocent parent or the protective parent and so on and so forth. They all do the same thing. But the thing is that in a real court of law, you're supposed to have due process of law. You're supposed to have things done in a proper manner. And part of that is that there should not be motives. There shouldn't be any of this that goes on in these fake courts, but they're fake courts. So, and it's at the jeopardy of your children and your life and your livelihood. And they're not just stealing kids, they're stealing homes and everything else and causing extensive damage and abuse. I want to talk a little bit about, I had a child, like I said, in 2014, I worked with Assemblyman Frank Spartatos in the Hudson Valley area. He was the assemblyman there, and I worked very extensively with him. And there was the murder of a little boy named Mason DeCosmo, and that was horrible. And the mother moved in a boyfriend, and within 2 weeks he killed him. And it was like over 70 external bruises and all kinds of horrible stuff. So we began to do something called, with the approval of the father, because in this case the father was the protective one, ignored and unheard, and the mother, you know, did these crazy things, and then she took happy, smiley Facebook pictures all over the past 2 weeks like everything was great, and there's no way it was great. No way it was great, okay? So what I'm telling you this is because I see this all the time where people latch onto people when there's a horrible situation like this, instead of either be there for support, but don't use it. Don't capitalize on it. This is a tragedy, and we want to make the right kind of changes, and you want the right kind of people that know what's really going on. When we had our private meetings, hearing meetings, and we brought in certain experts that we trusted to stop this abuse, we did write up something called Mason's Law. And I thought it was very good because what it did, it did a full background check on somebody being moved into a home, especially so short of notice, with a bad background, okay? And to hold everybody accountable. Of course, the judiciary never put it through. It wasn't a bill they want because it would protect children. But I'm saying this to you because now I know that there's certain bills that have been thrown out there. Are you even a part of these bills? Because when we talk, you talk about abolish, arrest, and do the right thing.
Well, I'm not familiar with the bills that people are creating in my son's name. Since the beginning, obviously, after hearing of Thomas's death, I kept stressing out, you know, the fact that, you know, whatever happened to Tommy has to be avoidable by, you know, creating necessary changes, which obviously I would, you know, want to see CPS caseworker wearing body cameras on themselves during the interviews. Obviously forensic evaluations to be video recorded, attorney for the children, you know, they claiming they want to speak with the children privately, but let's record.
Very dangerous.
Yes, let's record the
even
conversation.
If you record these people, though, if the child says, I don't like mommy, that doesn't mean he doesn't like mommy.
Yes,
it
could be brainwashed.
It could be brainwashed. So it still becomes dangerous in a situation where they're so manipulative.
Right. It should be definitely, you know, people, like in my children's case, who have special needs, people who actually are educated to work with kids with special needs, you know, who have experience, you know, and a lot of times the court should rely actually on, you know, on specialists' opinion, like, you know, my kids work with excellent therapists and specialists, but none of them were interviewed by CPS caseworkers, and none of them were called to the court to testify. You know, in the divorce case, one of them went to obviously the neglect case, and she was able to state, you know,
The truth.
obviously what kind of mom I was,
Right.
and that she never had any concerns in regards to
Right.
me taking care of my
Right.
children.
It's obvious, just meeting you. It's obvious.
Thank you so much.
It's the truth.
But you know, the changes we can, you know, come up with million laws in place, but if we don't have some, you know, institutions that's gonna fight the corruption, the changes are not gonna happen. You know,
Why
we're
should
gonna
any
go.
family feel fearful that they're going to not be able to protect their children
Yes.
in a system that is you would think is supposed to protect them, but we've learned the hard way
Yes.
it's not.
Yes.
You know, but I can tell you for certainty that I know that there are thousands of laws with children's names on them,
Yes.
and not a single one of them has stopped this or
Exactly.
any other, or the recent one that just happened February, I think it was February 2nd in Ulster County by Judge Mizell, ignoring the father that saying that there's major issues here, and now his 6-year-old boy is dead. Okay, and it got no media attention at all. Okay, which really is offensive because this little boy is a little black boy, and I wonder if that has something to do with it. Because I have other cases with black children, and we don't even know that they've been killed.
That's what I've been stating a lot of times. You know, case, you know, of Tommy is publicly known, but there's so many children out there that are every day they lose their lives to the abusive, you know, parent or guardian or, you know, any other person involved in their life, and you know, there is just no action on the part of anybody who's supposed to protect their children to actually hold the people involved accountable. And all the people, you see, to me, if anybody knows about the abuse but purposely trying to hide the abuse, they also take a part of the abuse, and that's the problem.
Absolutely.
You know, because there were so many people who in my case were involved who could have stopped the abuse long time ago, save my children's life, return them, you know, obviously under my care, so you know I can raise them, make sure they're safe, so they would not, you know, the abuse will not continue, but they failed to do it. They are equally responsible.
There's no question. I
There's
think that
no
they are fully
question about it.
responsible.
Yes,
When
exactly.
we were in that meeting, CPS stayed to listen to you and then left and hear the rest of us. They exhausted out the clock, so they couldn't hear the other
Exactly.
side
That was
when the media was
yes,
there.
that was very disrespectful, and you know, that's just showing they don't want changes. They just want to pretend they're gonna implement hiring more caseworkers. But they don't want to hear what the victims of the corruptive system want to tell them. You know, they're not sincere about it.
No, I can promise you that.
Yes.
And also in New York State alone, and this doesn't cover the whole country, I can tell you more, but in New York State alone, 1 child dies per month in New York State alone through family court. Okay,
Yes.
through ignoring abuse. And
That's
we're talking. We get to find out about the ones, not always, like I said, that have been killed. You can't change that statistic because it is what it is.
Yeah.
But right now, as we're speaking, we know that countless children are being currently abused.
Yes.
And part of that abuse is taking them from their loving caretaker.
Yes.
That is the biggest bunch of abuse. And, you know, I see children with regression issues.
Yeah.
I see children who had great grades and great histories and great medical records and, you know, great education records. And all of a sudden there's a switch, there's trauma.
Yes.
And now they're declining in education. They want to do the IEP so they can make them out to be slow, and they're not. They're very intelligent children.
Yeah.
They start depreciating on the children that way. I also see where children being taken from their loving caretakers. According to ACE research, Adverse Childhood Experiences, it shows that it literally takes up to 20 years off of their life long term.
Yeah.
And then all kinds of brain activity that starts to, you know, affect the child overall and the adults too.
Yes.
We go through hell too.
Yeah.
That we're supposed to be the ones that are raising them, protecting them, and being stable for them, and these courts are harming everybody.
See, like my children are gonna be affected by this enormous abuse the rest of their lives. I mean, you know, their situation, and it's still obviously they're improving, they're gaining weight, and you know, they feel love and support.
And they feel
But
safe now.
exactly, but they are, for example, afraid of the dark. They, you know, in a situation where, you know, let's say they, you know, have to take turns or share or fight for a toy, something simple. They have a very hard time to control their emotions. You know, the environment that they've been living in for the past 2 years was so abusive. I mean, children still like heard them cursing, you know, because that's what they were exposed to. And nobody's gonna return, you know, to them their childhood when they're supposed to, you know, feel happy, safe, you know, progressing in every aspect of their life. Nobody's gonna return them, you know, return that to them. Unfortunately, that's how, you know, the actions of people involved in deciding of you know, the child's life are so, you know, there's such a big responsibility, and it has to be held to the highest standards of the law. There has to be a law that held all the people involved, you know, extremely accountable for their actions. And
there is a
those
law,
people
but there's already a law.
Right.
It's called Title 18, Section 242. They should have already been in jail for this, every last one of them.
Right.
And we have to ask the question,
why they not in jail yet?
Why?
Yes.
Any other criminal, your ex-husband is in jail.
Yes.
Why are they not in jail?
Yes.
Why are they not in jail?
That's the question.
Any other criminals
nobody
in jail?
Answered, you know, yet. Obviously, you know, based what we've seen so far, and you know, my concerns that were addressed at the beginning of this interview, I'm not sure if they're ever gonna be in jail, because
we have things that we're working on behind the scenes to make that happen, and we're going to just continue to focus on that. That's why I don't go off on other tangents. That's why I'm not for any of these bills. I'm certainly not for this one particular bill where they're talking about hiring an attorney. I'm sorry, what is it again?
An inspector general.
Inspector general, which would be possibly one of their judges or whatever, just to keep this fraud going.
Right.
I'm not for any of that stuff. And any of these newbies that are trying to circle you, you know, they don't even have a clue what they're even talking about. When we all started out, we wanted to reform because we thought, oh, there's just a couple of holes, a couple of mistakes. No, promise you, no. Out of 10 out of every 10, 50 out of every 50, 100 out of every 100 that I meet all over the country, it's the same story, different people.
Yes.
It's money maker. They don't care about children, like at all. So, and when I heard that night when we were there, when I heard them say case overload, I've heard that every time a child dies.
Exactly.
So with unlimited funds, why would you have a case overload?
Yes.
In any business out there, there's a commitment to excellence usually. Shouldn't there be a triple commitment to excellence when it comes to children?
Yes.
They're full of it.
Exactly.
They're full of it.
That's just the easiest excuse they can come up with, because they don't want to use the word corruption.
They just don't want...
And they don't want to appoint the institution, external independent, who's going to actually fight the corruption, you know, to bring the changes necessary, so necessary to save children's lives. And, you know, in my case, you know, there were so many CPS case workers to actually, you know, who were on the case, because if one was, you know, was questioned about, you know, that CPS case worker misconduct, they quickly changed it to another CPS case worker who claimed that she just doesn't know anything about the case, and she it wasn't her fault what happened so far in the case. I mean, the case worker, you know, all the manipulation, falsification of the documents, accusing me of, basically with the information, mentally ill person, erratic behavior, drinking, using drugs. I mean, people who never even saw me, spoke with me, or interviewed me. And they really should be held accountable for whatever they're putting in those reports. And those reports should be publicly known. Those reports should be at least known to the person involved. But that didn't happen. And unfortunately, now we just have to move forward. And I'm hoping this is going to bring changes. I'm hoping, Tommy's, Thomas, he was just,
if you
as
want
I
to show
said, yes.
the cameraman. Yes, this is Thomas Valva. And tell us about this picture.
Well, that picture was taken January 14, 2018, which was the last time I saw Thomas alive. And, it's just, Thomas was this extraordinary boy who, as I stated in many interviews, he always stood for the truth. He always, that's why he was, very severely abused by the Farangela, because he just wouldn't do what they were forcing him to do through enormous torture, starvation, abuse. He wants the changes, he wants to save other children's lives. He's looking upon us from heaven just to remind us what's the most important, speaking for those who cannot speak for themselves, having people who truly care about the children and their lives in those offices, in those institutions, to stop the corruption, to stop manipulation, stop with, using the children as a tool, of further abuse. Benefits, to people who don't even care about the children, So I hope, I just hope the changes are going to happen soon, because we don't really have time.
No,
we can't wait for another child's death. I mean, that boy that you just spoke about, that was what, 2 weeks difference between
2 weeks
Tommy
difference. Same state.
and his death, the same state.
There was another one 2 or 3 days ago upstate in Troy.
That's
Little
the
boy
one I'm talking about.
drowned in a bathtub.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. And it wasn't an actual drowning, they found out. It was hypothermia, and it wasn't a drowning. That's the excuse the news gave. Yeah, that's the same. And that's actually Ulster County Family Court, Judge Mizell, and we're trying to find out if the child attorney is Amy Ingram or which one it is. Because it's more likely her, because she fights for the abuser. And in this case, the dad was trying to get to the child, and the court would not let him in to fight for his son, because they already knew the child was with the abuser. They'll only chase after protective parents, okay, to take the children. They won't chase after true abusers. She wasn't technically, I mean, obviously she was, but she had severe mental illness, and he wasn't safe with her. And they didn't want to hear that. So real mental illness, they don't care. They're going to make up fake diagnoses when they don't have the right to do that.
Unfortunately, that's the case when there is no evidence against, parents. Like, there was no evidence against me that will question, what kind of mother I was. Only evidence of caring and loving mom. Who
what would it matter if you did? Because think about it. When they're actually abusing, what do? That's okay. The child can stay there. We'll put a protection order to appease you.
Yeah, but they usually come up. They usually come up with the excuse that the parent, is mentally ill, or they will send the parent to forensic evaluation. That they have their own people who are actually conducting the evaluation to determine that parent, is not capable of taking care of the child, has some questionable behavior that should be addressed through, like maybe mental treatment. I mean, it's all corrupted.
It's all corrupted. They're not capable of making these decisions.
Yes, it's all, made up just to get the outcome that is already known at the beginning of each case.
Absolutely, right before. I heard the Mason de Cosmo outcome, the little boy, 1 year before they made the fake outcome. I heard it. I listened to the people they spoke. I heard a whole conversation. I've heard many, many conversations where they do the outcome of the case before trial even begins. Okay, we know that it's just a game. How is this going to work better for us, and how much money can we make off of this family? It's all that matters.
It's extremely.
And as far as I'm concerned, how is it in any normal world for justice for your son, justice for all these children, justice for all these families, through a justice system, when we know it's not, what a slap in the face that would be if we don't abolish and arrest and start fresh. In my opinion, we wouldn't have the highest opioid drug in history in time. Okay, so why do you think that's happening? Because these kids don't have any identity. They're not with a safe parent. Okay, children can grow up great in a one-parent home, whether it's dad or mom, when it's consistent, loving, and safe, and they can become great.
Leaders
for successful for the future. That's okay. My point is that if we don't take this down, we're going to have children and young adults into adulthood on drugs, which is what we see when they lose identity. I don't believe we need this system at all. I believe what we need is maybe like a mediation process by choice, free will, not forced. I've seen orders that people can't even follow. I've literally seen the most craziest orders. They're all crazy. But like, for example, Monday this, Tuesday this, Wednesday that, from this hour to this hour, who can live like that?
Exactly.
That's insane.
It's impossible to execute. No. But I want to just, going back to the orders, my last court appearance in Suffolk County Family Court, when I addressed the judge on the record, obviously, and we spoke about judge asking me basically to just trust him, on the case. And
what judge was that, by the way?
It was just Judge Tanton.
Judge Tanton.
But obviously, I expressed the willing to cooperate with the courts. But then when I received the order from the county attorney, it completely contradicted what we actually spoke on a record
In front of
with
all
the
the
judge.
people.
When the
Everybody
CPS was
witnessed.
trying to put the supervision above me, which we never spoke about it with
Right.
the judge, because I would never agree to
Of
it.
course not.
Because I'm not the person, you know,
Right.
who abused the children
That's
or caused the
right.
death of my son.
No, they are.
And it took actually 2 trials for the county attorney to correct the order.
Okay,
And at
good.
some point,
Thank
I just
God.
said we're gonna go back on the record and address this, you know, like
Yeah.
extremely concerning situation right now, because I just couldn't believe that, you know, obviously with the case so publicly known, the CPS would continue with their abuse towards me and the children,
about
would
the
continue with
arrogance.
their manipulation, and the county attorney looked like he just didn't see the order before, even though he works there for many years. I mean, it's just really sad, you
It's
know,
sick.
that
It's
you're
evil.
trying just to, you know, make sure your children are safe, you know, are
And they
protected.
certainly can't keep him safe. And for a judge to tell you to trust him, who is he to trust? Have any of them ever been trustworthy? They're not even allowed to act out emotionally in a courtroom. They're supposed to stay even-keeled the whole time. So and I've seen them rise up, act angry. I've been in every court pretty much.
Yeah.
And I've seen them act out. They're not even allowed to do that. They're supposed to be above reproach, and they're not.
Yeah. Well, Judge Stanton, I give him a credit for trying, you know, to,
Okay.
at least so far what I've seen, you know, he did grant me temporary custody of my children, and, you know, obviously for
But
the
why
2 fathers.
temporary? You should have sole permanent custody.
I'm gonna try to file for that, obviously, and, you know, based on, obviously, you know, all my arguments are gonna support it by the evidence in the case, how much, you know, I always put my children's medical, social, and educational needs in the first place in my
Of
life,
course.
because kids are just means a
Right.
word to me. They're the most important.
But you have
So-
sole, at least it's sole custody. It should say sole custody.
Right now
only.
it's right now it's, you know,
So
obviously
temporary.
temporary custody based on removing the children from Michael's custody. But, you know, I'm just hoping, you know, obviously there's so many people affected by the system
That's right.
who, you know, obviously are fighting like I've been fighting for so long. And that went nowhere, you know, and I just, the only advice that I can give to anybody, just put all your trust in God, and He will guide you and lead you to the right people, you know, and He will bring the right solution, because He's the highest judge.
That's right. He's the
You
only
know,
judge, really.
And every time, you know, when I go in a courtroom, I always read, you know, in God we trust. That's the only trust you can put on, because there's nobody really, you know, obviously that there's nobody who is higher than God, and
That's
there
right.
is, yes, and you know, He's the only one who can bring the justice to every situation. So I'm hoping, you know, all the people who are listening, you know, tonight to our conversation, you know, are gonna, you know, I guess be more aware what actually is going on with, you know, the situation, obviously involving, you know, my son's tragic death, and also, you know, bring awareness to the situation that the changes are absolutely have to happen soon.
Now, prior to Thomas's death, did you have people coming out to you saying, this is happening to me too, before his death? Did you have that, or just after?
I've been doing some research online, and I've been noticing, especially in regards to Judge Zimmerman, on the website called robberyroom.com, that she destroyed a lot of lives. That even some of the attorneys would, you know, comment that she completely.
That's a lot. That says a lot.
Yes,
They don't usually.
Yes, completely, you know, makes her decision which are not based on the law, and that she's destroyed so many lives, and, you know, involving especially the children. And I always, you know, knew that my case is not just a single file case, that there's more victims out there, but what we have to do, and I do believe it's gonna help, is just raise our voices, not be afraid to speak up, you know, not be afraid to show the support, and for the changes, you know, because you know, because, you know, somebody's not affected directly by the situation in family court, you know, maybe in the future, you know, their family member will, you know, and exactly, and, you know, it's really important that we fight for a good changes, not the changes that will benefit, and
not
create
the
more
business.
corruption or benefit the
Right.
people.
The child trafficking business is what the family court is.
But for the changes that's gonna save the lives of the children, that should be the bottom line.
Now, the night that you spoke at the hearing, the night that I met you at the hearing,
Yes.
How late did that go? How late were you there? All the way to the end? Or?
I was almost to the end. I mean, I probably left there before midnight.
Okay, I heard it went till about 1:32 in the morning with family after family
Yes.
after family after family.
It was.
Now that's one county.
Yes.
So imagine that in every county, in every state, in
Yes.
the country. To say that, like, to me,
Those
it doesn't get
stories-
any more obvious.
Those stories touch my
They're
heart so
horrible.
deeply.
Horrible.
And I was just completely, speechless, sitting there and listening to, what actually the system did to people, how much they destroyed their lives. And unfortunately, I had a court appearance next day. I couldn't stay till the end, but the CPS case workers should stay to the end and listen to the
Right.
stories
But
of
they
those
didn't.
of the victims of the system. And I'm not sure if there were any changes made by the legislators of Nassau County, because listening to people's complaints is one thing, but the other thing is taking actions upon the information that is being transparent to them, and making sure
I can assure you
changes
they
are gonna
already know
happen.
this. Every
Yes.
last one of them already know this. They know it. They've known it. They usurped our authority as we the people, and they continue to do so every day. And it's absolutely wrong. And that's why I cannot, in good conscience, ever do anything else but fight to take the head off of this system. I've never seen one benefit to this system. And like I said, even if they started out, they're illegal on their face anyway, but even if they started out and did good all these years, it's still not what our founding fathers put into writing that we supposedly stand by. And if we do, the more we continue to chip at the Constitution and just start removing things the way we feel like it, or getting a governor like Como to just say, force vaccinations, segregate children, do this, do that, whatever. That's very dangerous. Even if you believe in vaccinations, 72 of them in your child that use your, a little common sense. They've never been tested. They've proven that. Merck has been sued for billions of dollars, never been tested. So, so there's so many things that we have to be so wise about right now to make the right changes. And when I say changes, I'm not talking coddle them. I'm not talking negotiate with these terrorists, because that's what they are. I care about the children and the children's children. These children, to have a future in the next decade or two, will not have a future if this continues. This continues. And they can throw in any bills they want, any new laws they want. Our founding laws are perfect. They've ripped out of school civics. They've ripped out of school most of the history. Okay, and they want children to be forced into public school so they can continue to brainwash them instead of into homeschooling or like a Montessori school where things are being taught properly to children, a Christian school, so that they don't know the truth and of our founders, of our framers, of our history, and of our future, their future. So it is very unsafe. It's just very unsafe. And I want to see, like I said to you that night, there's only one good thing that could come of this, because it's, it's beyond heartbreaking that this little boy, we would love him all to be here. The thing is that, like you said, he was a very strong child, and that I believe also has faith in God, because his mom, does.
Of course.
That this will be used for ultimate good, and that his voice will be a voice for countless children to put a stop to this once and for all. Because this can't continue.
Right.
This just can't continue. It just can't.
Is it right if I ask a question? Justyna, this is for you. Is there anything you feel, looking back, you could have done differently that could possibly prevent this from happening to another child?
When I was thinking about, obviously many times in my head, raised the question, what else I could have done to save my children, to save Thomas's life and, stop the abuse of all of my children. But, that question is a very difficult question, because, as a mom, I'm always gonna ask myself, to the rest of my life, what else was out there for me to do. But people who are surrounding me, friends, family members, people who I also just met because of the situation, they've been assuring me, Justyna, you just did everything. Who else you could have asked for help? You went you exceeded all the legal, sources
You did.
to help your children. Attorney General, FBI, Nassau County District Attorney's Office, Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, Child Protective Services. I wrote even to the White House, to the governor, to the president. And my, complaints, my, crying for help went nowhere. It's very, extremely difficult to, if anybody had any idea what else I could have done, please tell me. But I just literally did everything. You have to see the amount of papers, I filed. It got to a point where I was actually sending packages, with, 50 pages complaints. And I also submitted flash drive with, the evidence.
And it still
wasn't.
I want to assure you that you've done above and beyond. And I know this because, just from what you've been telling me, but also because I know what I've been doing on my own and all these other families, and then when I hear what they've done, and what infuriates me is they say, if you see something, say something. Who do you say it to?
Exactly.
They all ignore. I hear your story every day, all over, everywhere, worldwide.
Yes. Worldwide. See, I thought actually in August of 2019, I filed a complaint with the Attorney General, William Barr, and I thought that's actually gonna bring, necessary help for my children. And how higher you can go than Attorney General, you can't go higher than that. And actually,
look at the one in New York. We have thousands of under oath sworn statements, and she's ignoring it completely.
My complaint, instead of being placed in a criminal division, was placed in a civil rights division, where they already told me it takes, a long time for the complaint to actually being looked at and decided. And I kept writing to them, why is it in a civil rights division if it's a clear abuse of the children, when they have the division in a criminal division, special section for the abuse involving the children, but they would refuse to investigate my complaint. When I
say that again, they refused to investigate.
Yes,
there it is.
They just, when you call them, they would have stated that you
it
can't
take
even
top priority.
You can't even speak with the person who is assigned. They wouldn't even tell me there's anybody assigned to investigate my complaint. That I have to wait, and after their time of me waiting, when they had the deadline to decide what to do with the complaint, they still kept claiming that they need more time to see if they're going to be interested.
I said this over and over again. We're talking about emergency 911, emergencies. We've called 911 and it's never done anything for anybody. So we're talking about emergency 911 where they come running to somebody's aid. Somebody fell out of a tree, somebody got hit by a car, instant. A child goes through CPS and they ignore it completely no matter who you go to. If that doesn't tell you we need to get rid of the system, I don't know what does. If I call the fire department, and I say this over and over, and I said, oh, my cat's up in the tree, I'll get 80 firemen at my house with trucks and a ladder to get a cat that knows how to climb up and knows how to climb down. Protection, but not a child. Not a child.
Yes. But referring to 911 calls, a lot of times when I filed police reports, they were friends of Michael, obviously, because of him being police officer. A lot of those times the reports were falsified when I couldn't even sign them. And I'm going back, just remembering the report that I filed in regards to Thomas's severe beating on January 14, 2018. When I filed the complaint, those police officers involved would actually refuse to write my exact statements, because at the end you have to sign and you have to declare that everything what's included, it's it contains the truth and those are your exact words. So they will refuse to, write exact situation of my children, claiming that the father only spanked the child. And when I addressed it to with them, that wasn't spanking, it was actually assault with physical injuries. And, I'm requesting even to check on my children and actually,
do a welfare check.
Yes, and arrest the father.
They
obviously
need to, every last one of them needs to be held accountable for being cowards.
Yes. Believe it or not, they actually laugh at me. The sergeant involved
They're disgusting.
claimed that you can spank the children in New York, that's the law, and they refuse to send even one police car
You
to
can in Pennsylvania,
the
not in
place.
New York. It's actually
Right.
not true.
But
he needs to go back to the books.
They even refuse to send the police car to the home of Angela and Michael, knowing that I expressed to them that the next day, which was January 15th, the father is supposed to produce the children for visitation. He refused to do it. So they wouldn't even check on the children, They had the report of severe beating, father not producing the children.
That's not a pat on the butt.
Exactly. And they even refused to send one police
Were
car.
some of those policemen in that meeting? I was wondering, because do you know? Because I get a very good feel off of people, and there were a couple of decent ones, and I can tell right away there were some corrupt ones, because
Obviously,
I just know.
I did file complaint with Internal Affairs Bureau in regards to those police officers, but the complaint was dismissed when I filed commission on human rights, which according to their paperwork is the next independent organization that will actually investigate if IAB doesn't do their job. They also refused.
Let me touch on that for a minute. Everyone that's watching, I know that most of you have done that before, exactly that, the Human Rights Commission. I'm going to ask everybody that's going through this, and if you can gather together, like, we'll just make up a name, Judge Charlie Brown. If you've got 10 or 5 or 20 victims of Judge Charlie Brown in every county, in any county, any state, I want you to go to your Human Rights Commission, and I want you to fill out the form that's on their website. You should be able to get it from them or call and get a copy. And I want you to fill it out and sign it under oath. If you can get a group to do it together, get to that right away. We have some great stuff happening, especially in New York right now. And I will bring that publicly and live soon, not right away. I don't tell my left hand what my right hand is doing. But just, I need you guys to do that across the country, okay? If they do not comply with the law, we're going to deal with that. And that the next step I need you guys to do is, if you did not get what we served upon the Attorney General, Letitia James in New York, and even if you're in another state, make sure that you email me. I'll make sure that that's on the top of this video soon. For a copy and instructions, you need to do a 1-page supplemental, sign it under oath, sign the commission one under oath also. And I'm going to teach you guys very soon the next steps in that to start the prosecutions of the judges and the CPS workers, because see, it's not up to them. We're not going to ask them anymore. We've done that. We've exhausted everything. We're going to demand that this stuff is taken care of, and we're going to make sure that these organizations are the ones that are going to do it. And we already have that started, and it's very effective right now, and it is going to happen. And that's, I believe, thanks to your son, Tommy, has a big part in that. There is some major things coming down the pike, and we will bring more out from Punish for Protecting of what we're doing and include everybody in this country. And listen, if you don't get up and go and try to do, if you do, you're saving a child, or you're saving a beating, or you're saving something. So please don't think that what you do is in vain, because there's times when I just talk about stuff on a social media platform and somebody got their children back and they never even had a consultation with me. They watched something, they follow the procedure, and they thank me, and I'm like, wow, that's great. So don't think that what you're doing is in vain. It's, believe me, if it's just giving somebody hope, you're doing something.
Definitely.
Okay, but we're fighting the devil.
Any action is better than no action.
That's right.
And, you know, if it comes to children, we really should not hesitate to, you know, continue fighting for justice for them, because they really need us. You know, they can't speak for themselves, they can't protect themselves. We are responsible to providing, you know, all the protection that's available to them. So
Justyna, is there anything else you want to tell the viewers today? Anything you left out? Anything that they left out in the media? Anything?
Being enormously grateful for all the support that everybody has been expressing towards me, my family.
2 or 3 things.
You know, there's been so many letters written to us that we are receiving obviously on a daily basis, and I can't mention all the names, but I just want you guys to know that you really touched my heart. I'm extremely, feel extreme amount of gratitude for everybody's just love, support in this extremely difficult time. And like one person wrote to me, and I read it yesterday, God wouldn't put anything on a person that he will not, he wants to make sure you can handle. And if I'm the person that has to raise the voice and obviously advocate for all the children who are being so severely abused like my children were, I'm definitely dedicated to do so. And just thank you, thank you for all the prayers. Please keep us keep praying for my family, and don't lose your faith in God, because at the end of the day, that's the only value thing that keeps you strong and will surpass any challenges in your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a few questions and comments.
Okay? Sure.
First of all, I commend you for being such a strong woman and a great mother. And I've seen you personally in court represent yourself, and I commend you for continuing to represent yourself, because we can't just let an attorney, make a deal or something and do whatever they're going to do. So I'm also a target myself. Would you say that, being the respondent, because you were a respondent, is that correct?
Yes, I was defendant. Obviously, Michael's plaintiff in a divorce case.
Now, when you are that, do you feel like a target?
Well, in my situation, Michael abandoned me and my children, and he basically immediately filed for divorce without any separation agreement. And to be honest with you, the court shouldn't even sign the petition, obviously, for divorce, because it has to be 6 months separation before that is being, according to law, right, lawfully filed. Yeah. But many times, obviously, providing the evidence to the court and arguing on the court's records, especially in regards to the situation of my children, the enormous physical, mental, and sexual abuse of my children, my voice was not heard. I'm not sure if that has to do with the fact that I was defendant. I think it just has to do with the fact that everything was pre-planned in my case to actually benefit Michael and to, give him outcome that he, that he already, like arranged with,
that's what it
with
sounds
all
like.
the people involved. So.
The reason I stated that is because there's a lot of people that are concerned because they happen to be going through a divorce or also family court, and they're the respondent, and they've done just like you've done and myself, go everywhere, go to everyone, and no one seems to do anything. It's almost as if you fell into a black hole, right, and you don't exist, you have no credibility. So would you say that this system as it stands has procedural defects that are not allowing you to protect your children?
Well, definitely the system needs to be changed, because it's designed to not protect the people who it should protect. Obviously, loving and caring parents are being punished for protecting their children, and the children goes to the hands of the wrong people who are abusing them. So there's just so many changes that needs to be made in order to even see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I can obviously only speak about my case, where starting from the forensic evaluator who was appointed, who completely even refused to videotape the forensic evaluation, even though I signed the it was called actually a consent, a written consent to allow him to videotape, because otherwise he will go to the court. So he completely, in my case, refused to do it. which I already knew he's trying to manipulate the forensic evaluation to give Michael the benefits. And when you know, obviously I never saw the report, but I'm pretty 100% sure that everything was written in his report would be the most wonderful things about the father and the most negative things about the mother, even though I never spoke with him or saw him, and he had no right to even issue any report in regards to, you know, to me. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes.
That's exactly
So,
right.
so I understand, you know, that there's some initiative here with Suffolk County legislation, where they're trying to, and they've tried to make attempts before at this, at assigning an independent office of an inspector general. So I imagine, as the mother that you are, and you're trying to fight this to prove your innocence and defend your children, that you would have probably gone to this office, since you've gone to pretty much.
The complaint was filed with the Inspector General and Attorney General, and you know, I would think those institutions are already appointed, but they did absolutely nothing to help me and my children. You know, obviously I'm not familiar with the law that is trying to be implemented in my son's name, but the main problem that we're dealing with, which is corruption, which is dealing with, you know, appointing an institution, independent, external, who will actually fight the corruption, you know, fight, you know, hold all the people accountable, you know, to the highest extent of the law, that should be in place, you
That's
know.
the only thing that should be in place.
Right.
If everybody were held accountable, this would never go on again.
No, because those people will be, you know, obviously will think twice before, you know,
there'd be people, there'd be honorable people in positions, and there aren't any honorable people, but we have to call them honorable. I mean, and I want to say something. This is really important. You know, Justyna's case, the ex was a police officer, but I just want to make it perfectly clear. You know, I deal with this all the time, and we're not dealing with police officers. They're just doing this to everyone.
Right.
So I think it got the attention it got because he was a police officer at NYPD, possibly. Who knows? It's the grace of God, for sure.
Well, he definitely knew people and had connections, you know, with the people, you know, we're talking about the web of corruption that was going on in my case, that he knew, you know, that he knew that those people are going to be very beneficial to him, and whatever he wanted to achieve from the divorce case, which obviously complete destruction of me and my children, taking away everything, you know, my kids, my house, my job, that would happen.
I've seen it happen so many times. So many times. Leaving a person out in the street without their children. It's there's a lot of real estate fraud in all of this. It's
horrible. I mean, so damaging to.
So, did you have one more question?
Yes. So you know, I agree that, you know, people don't understand this system until they become victims themselves of it, and I do agree that all of these cases that we've seen, it's always someone knows someone else, or someone donated to the judge, or, you know, something like that. Someone's got this lawyer that can pull out magic tricks. So yeah, the thing with the Thomas's law, what we've read the other day, because this thing with the legislation, it really doesn't cover that so much, but it mentions it, was that CPS could actually have the school detain your child, and I imagine that would spill over into daycares. But still, you know, if you're being a target of false allegations, it would not help a parent like you or like me, and it would not help children. It would just help CPS. And we just saw this.
Very dangerous.
We just saw this the other day here in the same court building that you're in Central Islip, where there was no court order, and it's a well-known fact that what's going on. And when we say it's a fact, is that the people know what's going on, but, you know, the law enforcement and all around, they haven't done anything yet. And there is a conspiracy where there is a councilman of a town in Long Island who happens to have the same last name as the same judge that this family, the presiding judge that was seeing over this case with this family. And the thing is that this family was actually removed from their house. They were evicted wrongfully, put into a shelter. And within 6 months, there's trends now with the same town that parents are being victimized by CPS, and then the kids are being taken. So we had actually gone to Central Islip, and what happened is the family was in there. The attorneys did not want to state on the record that this family came from a home where they were evicted and that's how they ended up in the shelter. They didn't want that to be mentioned. And when we Googled what was going on, we found out that the judge was related to the guy that's the councilman of the town that's been conspiring with these banks to evict people. And thank God CPS had overheard us say that, because there was no court order in place. But since about 2 p.m., the Suffolk County Police had the daycare surrounded with no court order, and they were ready to make sure that the parents could not pick the child up. And the parents had gone there, and that would pretty much show you what this law that we've seen would be able to enforce, and it would not be able to help us or protect our own children.
That's right.
So, I think that...
And, just falling back on what you said, in my case, there was so much pressure on the school by the CPS that, obviously the school wouldn't even file police reports, which will be absolutely necessary, as a next step to, save my children's lives. So I don't believe this is a good solution.
No.
Giving more power to CPS,
No, oh my God, no.
And what, like you said,
what about... They can't handle the power they have now. How can they handle more power?
Right. What about the, parents who are being falsely accused?
That's
when
right.
they cannot even go, pick up the child and fight about this either in court, where the child is immediately being removed without, obviously, depriving that parent from ability to explain the situation to the court. So, there's just wrong way to go about it. I believe it's definitely more focus, on making sure we have either, federal investigations in regarding to, cases like mine, or other cases involved, when there is just independent institution, who will conduct the investigation. And increasing the number of CPS case workers or giving more power to CPS case workers, it's just gonna be more damaging
when
to the
there's real
children.
crimes against children and families, real crimes, real abuse, that should never go through CPS, never. And it should never even go through a family court, because it's literally a fraud. What it should be is keep the law enforcement accountable to do their job properly, and the oath that they took, that they must be held accountable for the oath, first of all, to the Constitution, and then when there's real abuse of crimes, that person should be dealt with according to the law, not all of this other nonsense. It's not. Would it be okay if I just showed this little boy?
Sure.
This little boy didn't get any attention, and I just want to put his name out here. Death of 6-year-old boy in Troy, which is actually Judge Marianne Mizell. So she was a part of, and Anthony McGinty was a part of the death of Mason DeCosmo and several other children who have been hidden in Ulster County. The father tried to plead that the boy was in danger with the mother with mental illness. Ulster County Family Court case in New York. They only searched for safe children and protective healthy parents, waiting to find out if which attorney was involved. This little boy, 6 years old, they claimed he drowned in a bathtub. He did not. It was hypothermia, and he was 6 years old, and his name is Devontae Hall. So I'm going to ask that you guys all please pray for the family, pray for the father. If anybody knows this dad, I did reach out to him to have him please reach out to me, Punished for Protecting, so we can tell his story and what hell he's been through with the Ulster County Family Court. But they're all the same. They are all the same.
It's going to continue to happen until we stop it, and it's only a matter of when will it stop and who's going to help us stop it.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking for you to do. Help us stop it, and that's the first thing you can do. Get these commission letters out. Make sure you under oath. They have to serve the judges, and the judges have to answer to these Human Rights Commission forms. They have to answer to whatever you put in there, each one. So if enough of us do it together, combined, plus what I'm about to give, another breaking story coming up very soon, either the 28th or Monday the 3rd. This next breaking story is going to come, and you guys are going to be very pleased with how we're making New York State implode from within to hold them accountable. And also this can be spearheaded and then throughout the country. So do it anyway. Even if you failed before, do it again, because we have a paper trail that we could probably wallpaper the White House 50 million times, families of what we've done. So not just, all the families. So, remember something too. I've been saying this from the beginning. We are much bigger than them if we would just come together and do the right thing and stay focused on the right thing. And the right thing isn't negotiating with terrorists, because that's what they are. The right thing is to demand an abolishment of the Family Court Act 1962, which was never voted in by the people. We should not only be insulted for the high degree of disrespect, but for the years of abuse to children and families that are happening right now while we're doing this live.
Speak about 1 second about
Go ahead.
how people are being locked up.
Families are being locked
Yet you
up
can
in
attack
jail.
someone and you're released for free.
You can kill somebody and go and be free. Look at the judges. So in New York State is literally, they had a protest, I believe today, against Andrew Cuomo. This guy has to go. So spread the word, okay? He has to go.
There's no accountability.
There's no accountability, and, it's up to us. But you know what? It's our fault, because we allowed them to usurp our authority. We're not to bow down to judges. During that hearing, by the way, they were sitting up on their thrones behind a gate, and we're behind it. Come on. That's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be the other way around. We're supposed to be sitting up there, and our public servants are supposed to be doing what we're telling them to do, not asking them what to do, telling them what to do. Okay? So, and we would have much greater respect than they ever have for us. So, anyway, I just want to give you the final say on this video before we close. If there's anything else you wanted to say.
Thank you again. For everyone who obviously been supporting me, my children, praying for us. I also want to invite everyone. We're going to have a march for Thomas on March 1st in Valley Stream, Hendrickson Park, where Tommy actually loved to go and play, and he took his couple first steps in that park. So it's really very meaningful. So I'm just inviting everyone. It's gonna be held at 12, and it's organized by my neighbors, so it's very family neighbor oriented. And I hope you guys come, and obviously to support Tommy and all the children out there that are so, I need our support. And Tommy's obviously guiding this movement that hopefully and I'm praying every day it's not gonna just stop, and obviously his death is not gonna go in vain, and we're gonna have great people working in the institutions and offices that truly care about the children, want the changes, and are gonna make the changes happen. It's not just gonna be the words, but we're gonna see some actions, right? So thank you again. Thank you guys.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And God bless everybody.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you guys. And you can reach us at punishtheNumber4beingaparent.com. Thank you. Need my help? Shut off. Oh, sorry.